Good morning, Year 10, and welcome to yet another thrilling lesson in the English language by me, Miss Letts. So today's focus is back to English language paper 1, which is our fiction paper, and we're going to spend a lot of time on question 3. So our plan of action is for you guys to do a retrieval quiz, which is on Teams based on last week's work. I'll give you a little recap of what English language paper 1 looks like. We'll have a read of the extract, and then we'll look at questions 1, 2 and 3 with a particular focus here. Now, unless I've been technologically terrible yet again, all resources should be available on Gopher Schools and Teams, and I'd like you to try to submit your work to the class notebook section of Teams rather than emailing me this week if you can. So, our extract is going to be on Fahrenheit 451, which is an excellent dystopian novel written in the 50s, I think. And the premise is this: it takes you to this kind of dystopian America where books and any form of literature or writing really are completely banned, they're abolished. And the protagonist, Guy Montag, is a fireman, and not in the sense that you or I might know. He doesn't put out fires, he starts them. The role of the fireman is to start fires, to get rid of all the books. And the title, Fahrenheit 451, is called that because that's the temperature at which paper begins to burn. It's a great book, you should definitely read it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Firstly, you need to try and do the delightful retrieval quizzes I've made for you on Teams. So for 10A4, for you guys, it's about exposure, and 10B1, it's Act 5, Scene 1. It's the work you did last week. It's 10 questions, but only 9 of them count because the last one is me being needy and asking you if my quiz was okay for a first attempt. So please be kind. You should be able to access it via Teams, and it will show you once you've completed it. So if you haven't done that, it might be a plan to pause the video now, quickly go do the quiz. It should take you like 5 minutes, and then come back and continue the lesson. Okay, so if you need to, pause now. Right, here is a recap of what English language paper 1 looks like. Now, most of you have already written this information down in your exercise book, so there's no need to rewrite it unless, of course, you want to have that reminder. So it's really just me verbally reminding you. So the paper's worth 80 marks. Section A is reading, and that's 50% of the marks. So question 1 is always super short. It's literally retrieving information. It's only 4 marks. Question 2 is analysing language, which we have done in a lot of depth. Question 3 is analysing structure, which is going to be our main focus for today. And question 4 is evaluating a text, which is worth 20 marks. And the next time we do language, we're going to be looking at a question 4. Now, section B is the writing section, which is the other 50% of the paper. And you get a choice of 2, only answer 1, and it'll always be descriptive or narrative writing, and again, that's 40 marks. So if you want to write that down, feel free, but you absolutely do not need to. Okay, let's have a look at our extract, and I'll put my bestest reading voice on. Okay. So this extract is from the opening of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It was first published in 1954. It was a pleasure to burn. It was a special pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. With the brass nozzle in his fists, with this great python spitting its venomous kerosene upon the world, the blood pounding in his head, and his hands were the hands of some amazing conductor, playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning, to bring down the tatters and charcoal ruins of history. With his symbolic helmet numbered 451 on his solid head, and his eyes all orange flame with the thought of what came next, he flicked the igniter, and the house jumped up in a gorging fire that burned the evening sky red and yellow and black. He strode in a swarm of fireflies. He wanted above all, like the old joke, to shove a marshmallow on a stick in the furnace, while the flapping pigeon-winged books died on the porch and the lawn of the house, while the books went up in sparkling whirls and blew away on a wind turned dark with burning. Montag grinned, the fierce grin of all men singed and driven back by flame. He knew that when he returned to the firehouse, he might wink at himself, a minstrel man, burnt corked in the mirror. Later, going to sleep, he would feel the fiery smile gripped by his face muscles in the dark. It never went away, that smile. It never went away as long as he remembered. He hung up his black beetle-coloured helmet and shined it. He hung his flame-proof jacket neatly. He showered luxuriously and then, whistling, hands in pockets, walked across the upper floor of a fire station and fell down the hole. At the last minute, when the disaster seemed positive, he pulled his hands from his pockets and broke his fall by grasping the golden pole. He slid to a squeaking halt, the heels 1 inch from the concrete floor downstairs. He walked out of the fire station and along the midnight street towards the subway, where the silent air-propelled train slid soundlessly down its lubricated flue in the earth and let him out with a great dull of warm air onto the cream-tarred escalator rising to the suburb. Whistling, he let the escalator waft him into the still night air. He walked toward the corner, thinking little at all about nothing in particular. Before he reached the corner, however, he slowed as if a wind had sprung up from nowhere, as if someone had called his name. The last few nights, he had had the most uncertain feelings about the sidewalk just around the corner here, moving in the starlight toward the house. He'd felt that a moment before his making the turn, someone had been there. The air seemed charged, with a special calm, as if someone had waited there quietly, and only a moment before he came simply turned to a shadow and let him through. Perhaps his nose detected a faint perfume. Perhaps the skin on the backs of his hands, on his face, felt the temperature rise at this one spot, where a person standing might raise the immediate atmosphere 10 degrees for an instant. There was no understanding in it. Each time he made the turn, he saw only the white, unused, buckling sidewalk, with perhaps, on one night, something vanishing swiftly across a lawn before he could focus his eyes or speak. But now, tonight, he slowed almost to a stop. His inner mind, reaching out to turn the corner for him, had heard the faintest whisper. Breathing? Or was the atmosphere compressed merely by someone standing very quietly there, waiting? He turned the corner. And that is all. So, question 1 is super short, and because I'm kind, I've copied lines 14 to 23 onto this slide, so you don't have to flick between this and the extract. But it's only asking you to list 4 things from this part of the text which describe what Montag did when he returned to the firehouse. I'm not going to talk you through this, so if you'd like to complete that now, pause the video. Okay, question 2 is language analysis, so this one's worth 8 marks. And again, it gives you lines to focus on, 1 to 12 in this case, which I've copied below. And it says, how does the writer use language here to describe the fire? Again, we've spent a long time doing language analysis, so I expect you to be able to do this quite independently. So give it a go by yourself, and if you do need help, just contact me, because what I really want to focus on today is question 3. Okay, so it will always tell you whereabouts the text is from in the novel, so if it's towards the end, the middle, wherever. In this case, our text is from the opening of the novel, and it will ask you, how has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? Sometimes they'll give you suggestions, so you could write about what the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning, how and why the writer changes this focus as the source develops, and any other structural features that interest you. These two almost help students out if they're not really sure where to begin, and this one is probably what's going to get you these marks up here. So on the right you've got the mark scheme, and it goes from level 1, remember these are levels, not grades, which is kind of a simple limited understanding of how a writer uses structure. Then you've got some understanding and comment, clear and relevant explanation, and for top marks, perceptive and detailed analysis. And what it means by perceptive is you're spotting things that other candidates might not have noticed. You're being quite original in your points. You're showing that you're quite a sophisticated writer. So that's how we can do well here. So one way that we can look at this is thinking about these sorts of questions as you are looking through that extract, thinking about the structure. So AQA, the exam board, has suggested this what, how, why approach to responding to these questions on analysis. So here I've put a range of questions you could be thinking about when you're looking back at the extract, when you're thinking about the structure. So when you first start reading, what is the writer focusing your attention on? How is it developed? What feature of structure is evident at this point? Why might the writer have deliberately chosen to begin the text with this focus? What main points of focus does the writer develop in sequence? How is each developed? Why is the writer doing that? How is this specific to helping me relate to the intended meaning at these points? What does the writer focus my attention on at the end of the text? How is it developed as a structural feature? How am I left thinking or feeling at the end? And why might the writer have sought to bring me to this point of interest or understanding? And I know that's a lot to take in, so I've condensed it here into the what being what structural feature is used, how is it developed and how does it interest us, and why might the writer have done this, always thinking about the writer's intentions. And up here, I've got some key vocab for structured questions. You won't be able to use all of them today, so it's kind of dependent on whether or not it's relevant given the text we're looking at. What I'm going to ask you to do is to pause the video here and take notes on this key vocabulary and this little box here which condenses all this information. Obviously you're welcome to write all this down, but essentially you just need this box and this box. So pause it now, please. Okay, moving on to actually annotating the extract. So I'm going to take you through this again. I'm not going to reread the whole thing, but we'll kind of speed read. And you'll notice on the AQA questions, it says, what's the focus right at the beginning of the text? So you've got this, it was a pleasure to burn, followed by this huge description of the fire and this idea of power. So immediately, we know that this is going to be a key theme or a key motif, an image in the text, this idea of fire. And that establishes it. So we don't really understand what's happening in the novel at this point. We just know that there's a massive fire and someone seems to be enjoying it, which might juxtapose our expectations. So we also see that it's written in the third person narrative and in the past tense, which could create even more of a distance between the characters and the readers. So in this instance, we know it's from a dystopian novel, so it's meant to kind of alienate us as readers even more. That's the effect it's having. So you've gone from this focus on the fire to our protagonist Montag. So immediately, from shifting the focus from the fire to the character, we know that he is also going to be a key element in this. And he's introduced as quite a confident character. You can tell by his body language, by the familiarity of which he's doing things. I think later he whistles. He's obviously very relaxed. And it's at this point that we understand that firemen don't extinguish fires in this world. They start them. And I know some of you are cringing because I keep saying firemen, but in the 50s it was, I'm afraid. So don't be sad. I know what I'm doing. Okay, so you've got this focus here. And as we go down, once he leaves the firehouse, his kind of place of safety, the tone almost shifts. It becomes slightly eerier. He's suddenly not this confident man whistling, knowing his place. He almost feels like someone's watching him, like there might be something there. So you could talk about the shift in focus there, the shift in tone. You've got this flashback, this analepsis to what was happening the other night, and then it brings it back to the present, now tonight. And we kind of end on this tense moment. We don't know if there's someone there waiting. We don't know what's going to happen. So the writer's obviously trying to keep us enticed here by setting up this somewhat ominous atmosphere after the protagonist's confidence. So that's almost a whistle-stop tour. You lot will spend a lot longer annotating it or making notes on it and thinking how you might do that. And when you're ready to write, here are some things that you could use in order to start your sentences. So if you aim for about 3 paragraphs and I'm not going to read them all out, but you could use some of these to help you if you would like to. Now, not all of these are going to be relevant for the text that we were looking at, so you pick and choose the ones that fit the best. And again, these sentence starters are probably useful for a range of question 3 tasks, but it's just a way of structuring your response clearly and thinking about structure rather than language, because it's an easy habit to slip into, starting to talk about similes when that's clearly a language technique. So if you would like to, you might want to pause the video at this point and jot down some of those ideas, or you might just want to have that here when you're writing your response. I'm just going to change on to the final slide, which is about submission. So I've attempted a screenshot. I'm not entirely sure if this is what it looks like on your version of Teams, but on mine, students can upload their work to the class notebook. So if you can't do that for whatever reason, I'll try and help you out, or you can just email it to me. But each week, the idea is I'll do some sort of weekly retrieval quiz. So that'll kind of be the evidence that you engaged in the work from the previous week. Anyway, I know that's been a lot to take on board, and I'm aware I've probably rambled at you for quite some time. Sorry if this is horrendously unclear. But we shall see. Don't really know what to do now. Practice Spanish. Hope you're all well. Again, sorry this one's a bit messy, a bit rambly. Take care, everyone. Bye.